Thank you.
I call Poto Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. During the last session, my general debate speech raised this very issue that we are debating today. And in that speech, I talked about how rape prevention education and Wellington Women's Refuge had successfully negotiated a stay where they would not be required to provide the level of information that other services would be required for a further 12 months for the purposes of, and in the words of the Minister, so that they could ensure that they would get the system right for that sensitive information that rape prevention and Wellington Women's Refuge would have to provide. So that leads me to ask the question, if that information is really sensitive, it's still going to be sensitive in a year's time. What I was really concerned about was what I heard today from the Minister in response to this very, very real urgent debate appears to have a real lack of understanding of what happens in the real world with providers delivering services to real people. I raised rape prevention, but I also want to raise my own experience having run a refuge, a community outreach service which was right on the main street of Henderson. I've spoken about this before, where it would take several times for women going past our shop front before they actually would come in the door. What that spoke to, Mr Speaker, is that it takes a lot of courage for people to actually own up to the issues that they have and to seek that help, reach out and get help. But particularly when it comes to issues of family violence and sexual violence, because the mamae that people have, the shame that they hold, is there for a long, long time. And it's not rational. It's not rational. When I have been doing tours of the country talking to community organisations, they have been telling me every single one has raised this as a matter of concern, because if you cannot establish a relationship of trust with your client, you are unable to work effectively with them. And you cannot establish a relationship of trust if they cannot even come in the door. You have to be able to be that safe place for people to come in and disclose their most intimate of issues. One particular service said to me they provide services to teenagers and young people in high school, people who don't have the age of consent. How then are they going to be able to consent to provide their information to the third party, which is then going to hand it on to the Ministry of Social Development? This particular service, and I won't name them, but this particular service deals with young people who disclose issues of family and sexual violence, who, under the rules that the Ministry of Social Development will require their parents to sign off the notification for that information to be passed on to the Ministry of Social Development. And in some cases, those parents are the ones that are perpetrating the abuse upon these children. So that isn't going to work. Those stories I've been hearing up and down the country, Mr Speaker. And when I last spoke about this issue, the Honourable Joe Goodhue challenged me and said to me that you would only be required to give information that you would give to your local school. And let's see what that information is. That the information is name, date of birth, iwi, ethnicity, your address, and those details of your children, and the services that you access. Now, when you're going to school, the services that you access, thank you, Mr Speaker, are educational services. If you are actually receiving mental health support or support from community alcohol and drugs, and you are a parent and you are disclosing that you need that support, then there is a very real fear in people who access these services that that information will then target them as being risky parents. Now, that's a very real fear. It may not be rational, but in the terms of what is going to be required by the Ministry of Social Development, it is creating fear, and we cannot allow that to happen. We have to have trust in our relationships if we're going to work effectively with people. This does not allow for that to happen, and I, for one, am really grateful for the Privacy Commissioner actually raising this concern with us. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
I call Joe Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.